I get started, I just wanted to see who here has a will. Anybody have a will? Wow, that's pretty good. For some reason, it's this half of the room. Okay, well, so surprisingly, I would have expected you all to be raising your hands. And I'm not talking about shaming you because you don't have a last will and testament. I'm talking about your power of will. Your willpower. Oh, yes. Anyone, please say yes. Yes. It's an inalienable right. That's what we've been talking about for this month, is those rights that come along with our spiritual nature. We turned away from the Declaration of Independence and we went over to the writings of the Apostle Paul when he said up here on the screen, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love, and here it is, of self-discipline. Think of that as your power of will. We've all been given that. And, you know, we talk about our will in a lot of different ways. We've probably often heard that we have a free will. We get to decide what we want to do and when we want to do it. That's the beauty of becoming an adult. That's what I always used to say. Once in a while, we might feel or believe that someone else is weak-willed because they keep turning the decisions over to someone else to make. They can't make them for themselves. And yet we've seen a lot of people who say, I'm going to do this, and they get her done. Those are the strong-willed people, right? Some of us have experienced a clash of wills. What does that mean to you when you have a clash of wills? My will disagrees with somebody else. It's always interesting to see who ends up winning in that case. We've also talked about the difference between being willful and willing. Which do you think is of the ego, willful or willing? Willful. Yeah. Willing is an open-hearted, kind of mature point of view that you're willing to talk things over and look at different points of view. And sometimes we claim that we don't have a strong will or strong willpower. We have no willpower. I think that's the way we put it. I can't do that. I don't have enough willpower. I need more willpower. And I'm going to offer today that you don't need any more willpower. We just need to see that will as a muscle that needs to be strengthened. We need to work with it more so that it starts to serve us as it was intended to do. And if we just give up our will and let the universe decide, the universe doesn't decide. You still decide, but you're deciding with your subconscious. You're radiating all the time whatever it is that you've been living and learning and believing throughout your life, so that your subconscious is determining which direction you'll go 95% of the time. So it's important that we pay attention to that will and how we're using it. It's one of our 12 spiritual powers in Unity, and it's, I would say, the most important power because it actually tells the rest of our powers what to do. Have you ever thought about that? That you can't really love someone unless you have the will to love them? If they're difficult, as much as we have that power of love. So think about the many, many ways that we could be using our will for good. And that's overcoming weakness, you know, when we start to feel like, maybe not so much, yes, I can push in here and get this done. Do the right thing instead of the maybe the wrong thing. Do the hard thing instead of the easy thing. A lot of times our will is, like for instance, when we were growing up, especially in our teen years, we wanted to sleep in, right? We did not use our will to get us out of bed, so we had mothers for that. To empower us to use her will to get us out of bed. But when you're really starting to use your will as it was designed, you don't need someone else to enforce things for you. It's your power of will that helps you go the extra mile, even more than what you've committed to, or at least to fulfill the obligations. It's your power of will to push your abilities a little bit. You know, just when you thought, okay, I'm done. Oh, but you know what? I could do a little bit more. It's using our power of will to stretch and grow and learn more. And definitely use your power of will to keep your ego in place. So up here on the screen, this is what our co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, wrote. He said that the will is the executive faculty of the mind. When you see executive, think CEO. The guy in charge of the company, the woman in charge of your company. The will is the executive faculty of the mind, the determining factor in man, humankind. It's the avenue through which the I am expresses its potentiality. The will is the directive power that determines character formation. The use of the will is very important in making demonstrations. One must be very persistent, since persistence is essential to demonstration. The will must resolutely lay hold and keep hold of the word of truth until that word becomes flesh. So we talk often about how our words create our reality, but not just with a single word. It's persistence. When Myrtle Fillmore brought herself back from the brink of death and then helped others learn how to pray, she also was teaching them how to use their will, to keep their consciousness focused in a certain direction, and that most of us give up too soon. So using our power of will is being persistent in order that we become that energy that we are talking about, thinking about, acting on. We radiate it out to the universe, and then we attract the results back to us. Your will keep you going until it is done. So I asked you to pick something up when you came into the room. If you did not get a bag of either a chocolate or a grape, raise your hand and let's get you one. So Kim Char needs one, Susan. Right here next to you, Mary needs one. So what you're getting, Susan's coming around, you have a choice to choose either a grape or a chocolate. If you've got a chocolate in your bag, would you take it out and unwrap it, please? Don't eat it. Okay, don't have time to keep chatting, Sharon. We got to keep moving here. I know that normally when you go to the grocery store, you have more time to think about it. Grape or chocolate? Grape or chocolate? People online, this is the thing I just could not figure out how to help you do. So you'll just have to observe and learn from this, okay? So don't put it in your mouth yet. I just want you to hear me say that unwrap your chocolate, yes. So what I want you to do is I'm going to tell you to do something and you're going to think it's time to eat it, but it's not, okay? So listen very carefully. Does everyone have one? Raise your hand. We got one more for Claire here. Anybody else need one? You guys got one up at the back table? You're going to play with us back there? Oh, come on. Have some fun. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Everybody take it out. I just said that, but unwrap the chocolate. So you're ready to go, either grape or chocolate. I did not realize this was going to be this complicated. Okay, so you've got it in your fingers, right? Now, you're not going to eat it. You're just going to put it between your teeth and hold it there. Like this, okay? Now, I'm going to take one out because I got a thought. But you're going to keep holding it there, okay? Now, while you're holding it there between your teeth and not eating it, it's not in your mouth, it's between your teeth. I want you to think about a squirrel and how often a squirrel has to plan ahead and go shopping for their meals months in advance. And they run around and they find buckeyes, let's say, and they open them up and they probably get their salivary glands going and they carry that buckeye somewhere secret and they dig a hole and they put it away. And then they run around and find another one. They carry it around maybe for yards and yards and yards before they spit it back out, dig a hole, and bury it, right? And they're not going to come back to that for months till there's snow on the ground, right? How you doing? You still got your thing in between your teeth? Okay. All right. So I'm trying to get you to see you're like a squirrel now, and your goal is to hold on to it, not consume it. Okay? How's that going? All right, go ahead and eat it. I'll let you get it over with. You're welcome. So just pay attention. During that exercise, was it easy for you to just let it sit there? Probably everything in you wanted to go and chew it up, right? Yeah. Why didn't you? Yeah, but just because I told you not to doesn't mean, you have free will, right? So you chose to use your will in a certain fashion, right? Yeah. And you chose it, I guess, because you liked me, or you didn't want to get, thrown out, or you didn't know what would happen if you did eat it. Who knows what you thought. But all of that contributes to how your will responds. And you used your will out there in the front room, or just here when the choice was being presented. How did you decide? Who chose chocolate? Raise your hand, please. Okay. How many of you that chose chocolate, just shout out, why did you choose that over a grape? Anyone? Live now. Grapes are boring. Tastes great. Chocolate tastes great. Haven't had any sugar for a while. Don?
May I say something? At first I chose a grape. And then as I was sitting here, Spirit told me life does not have to be either or.
Oh, Don broke a rule. Are you saying you brought them both in? Okay. Don was being willful. Good example of willful. Although if Spirit told you to do that, who am I to argue, right? Okay, so who here chose a grape? Raise your hand. Why did you choose the grape? Healthy. What'd you say over here? Because she had a cookie just before that. Yeah, got to balance, okay? You'll have chocolate later on. Okay. Anybody else? Why you chose the grape? Less sweet. Less what? Sweet. Oh, less sweet. Yeah. So a lot of times we choose that because we are using our will on behalf of our body. We're making decisions to decide what's good for my body. And sometimes we choose that because we think everyone else will choose the grape because it's the good thing to eat, right? We use our will. We kind of give our will away to somebody else. So are you starting to understand how this will thing works? Just every minute of the day you're making decisions. And a lot of times, 95% of the time, the subconscious is doing it for you. So we're going to talk about how to use this will and how we misuse it. I mean, most of the time it's the ego, it is always the ego, that will misuse our will. And it does it because it wants its needs met. It will willfully choose that which normally serves your 5 physical senses to begin with. It chooses for pleasure, right? It's typical for the human being, the ego, to avoid things that are unpleasant or boring. Did I not hear over here? We chose chocolate because grapes are boring. Yeah. And we just avoid those things, the difficult things. We also want that instant gratification. We want what we want, and we want it now. So we could misuse our will. In other words, choose and do according to what the body wants, the 5 physical senses want. And if we can't do the hard thing, we've discovered that other people will step in and choose it for us. Like, for instance, when we were growing up, our parents would choose for us because we didn't have the wherewithal yet to decide which was really for my highest good. But when we become adults, sometimes we're not choosing, as an adult, what's for our highest good. And the next thing you know, interest rates go up to get us back in line. Yes? Hey, wars start. Wars start because we have not learned how to use our power of will. Think about that. There's a lot of things out there that can get torn up for us, and part of it can be just because we're always listening to someone else's will. Not always. I shouldn't have said that at all. But we do let others determine for us what I'm going to do. And then we feel miserable because we're not doing what we really want to do. We're giving up a lot of the good in this universe because we're not putting our power of will. As a matter of fact, I don't think we can experience life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness if we are not using our self-discipline. I mean, when you think about it, check it out. How can we experience life or liberty or the pursuit of happiness if we don't include using our power of will for the highest good? And this purpose of will, to me, is something that is about moving us from spiritual infancy to adulthood, and that maturity will grow us in spirit. And the point of that is to keep bringing forth more of God, more of our divine potential, more love into our world, more wisdom, more creativity. That's the spiritual purpose behind our will. And that power is basically empowering the reason that we came here, which is important, or else why would we come here? I mean, many of us get so lost in this, it's not an illusion so much, but we just have that forgetting of who we really are when we come into the body. And at that point, we're just making decisions right and left that don't really serve us. So I want you to keep in mind that when you came here as a spiritual being, you didn't come to just coast. I did not come into this physical body to just coast. I came here because this is where the challenges are, and this is going to give me the opportunity to reveal more of my divine self. This is going to give me the chance to learn how to do the hard thing when my body and my ego want to do the tough thing. Last week when we were talking about love, one of the things that Jesus said is, what good does it do you if you only love those who love you? Remember? What good does it do you if you only love those that are easy to love? Well, that must mean that we're here to learn how to love the hard people because our spirit is seeking that growth. And we can only do that when we choose to do it with our will. So give yourself a chance to just keep checking in with how you're responding to people in your life and say, is this my chance? Is this my reason? Are you my reason that I came here to do this work? I was listening to a podcast last week, and this particular person had the abilities to tap into spiritual guides on the other side. And he regularly did that to consult and figure out what the best choices could be that he could make. And at one point, he was asking them about a challenge that he was going through. And this is what he heard come back to him from Spirit. We see that you're supposed to struggle through this on your own for your soul's growth. And so they weren't going to help him. This is why you came. For you to figure it out. And the only way that we can really do that is when we apply our power of will. Use our self-determination, our self-discipline in doing the hard things. And when you have an opportunity to lean into growth, choose it. I love what Albert Gray said up here on the screen. He said, the secret of success of every person who's been successful lies in the fact that they formed that habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. And that's it, in a nutshell. We avoid things we don't like doing, but we're also not a success. And then we wonder why. If we want to be a success, we have to grab hold of our power of will and make the hard choice, decide for good. And I'm not just saying make a decision and then do it. I'm saying make a decision for good and then do this for and as the Spirit of God. And this is where it starts to really, I don't want to say get hard, but it's actually where all the gifts are. If you can start using your power of will for good. So let's take, for instance, how many times hopefully not too many times, have you heard it said that that couple's child died and it just must have been God's will? Anybody heard that? Yes. Or, my husband didn't get the job, must not have been God's will. Heard something like that? Yeah. So think of Jesus in the garden and saying, it's not my will, but thine be done. And then he died. So of course, when you hear, choosing for God's will, nobody wants that, because evidently it's not always a good thing. But what if we've misunderstood what this will of God is? And that perhaps it's not all about, micromanaging our lives from above. That's not the way that the will works. And I think that once you understand this, you will be clamoring to line up with the will of God. So think of this way. When Jesus said, up here on the screen, he said, thy kingdom come. He's teaching us how to pray. He said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So he's telling us right off the bat that it's a good thing to associate ourselves with what God's will is. And then the Apostle Paul came along and he explained what the will of God was. He said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And then Charles Fillmore comes in again and says that the idea of giving up the will, your will, to God's will should not include the thought of weakening it or causing it to become in any way less. It properly means that the will, that's our will, is being instructed how to act for the best. So let me say that again. Following the will of God is simply pointing our will to the highest and best. That sounds pretty simple, right? It's not about wearing the red dress or dating that person or eating that food. That is not the will that is being sent from on high. We're talking about a will that here's Vera Tate Dawson saying it. God's will is that each species of creation shall fulfill itself according to its own divine image or pattern. Each one of you came in here with this pattern in your heart about who you're here to be. That's God's will. Just be that. Be what your spirit came here to be. And this final one is good. Linda Martellowitz it. The will, imagine that there's this movement of a will in the universe, is the universal ideal of eternal life, infinite love, ever-present wisdom, and all that is good prevailing. When we align our will with the will, it's for the universal ideal to permeate the stuff and circumstances of our human existence, so that what's in heaven also on earth, it's all this beautiful movement of energy with divine intelligence and love in the midst of it, seeking to express itself from its highest point of view. That is the will, and we have the option to catch up with that and allow it to flow through us so that we are presenting in this life that which we came here to be, or we can be willful and decide we're going to take the easy way out today. So are you up for training? I'm going to do a little training of your will today. Okay, so here's some suggestions. And first and foremost, it's about identifying the weak spots. Where are you in your life where your will is not working for the best? Either you're not using your will, or you're misusing your will, or you've given up on your will. Just figure out where in that life of yours is taking a back seat to good. Identify that place. And then secondly, seek the highest vision possible for that area in your life. Could be your health, could be your marriage, it could be how you spend your money, it could be what you're doing for your purpose in life, it could be your spiritual growth. Wherever it is that you're feeling struggling in life, invite Spirit to show you a higher vision of what's possible in this part of your life. And open up to whatever divine idea comes through your consciousness that catches your attention. And as you catch that, what I want you to do is just hold on to the idea, I will be obedient to the best that I know. I am willing to be obedient to the best that I know. I am willing to be obedient to the best that I know. Say that with me. I'm willing to be obedient to the best that I know. It's not going to be some magic bullet, some serum that you're going to take. It's got to start with just a willingness and a knowing that Spirit has the information you need, and your heart knows what that is. Now, we're up to number 3, your resistance training. Your ego is going to push back, as usual. It's going to want the easy way. It's not going to want to have to work very hard. It's not going to want to feel afraid. And so it's going to push back and give you all kinds of reasons. So when it starts to resist, you train it. You train it. And just say, it's time to do the hard thing. And I'm right here behind you, and we're going to get this done between us. I've told you the story from the Old Testament, the story of Nehemiah, who came back to Jerusalem and was led by God to rebuild the wall that had come down. And of course, there were different factions in town, and not everybody wanted the wall, but he absolutely felt like this was God showing him how to do this. And so he started to gather help, and he started to gather materials, and he started to build it, and he was way up there on the wall when some of his enemies would stand down there and say, "Nehemiah, come on down a minute. I want to talk to you about something." And he knew that they were working for his ill will. So think of that as your ego. The guy's down here on the ground, calling you to come down in consciousness. That's your ego. Come down to lower thoughts. We'll tell you all about the lower thoughts and what will really be good for you. But his response was, "I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." I like it even better. "I am doing a great work and I will not come down." I'm deciding I will not come down. That can be you. Higher self to lower self. So when the resistance starts to come, you train it. We're doing a great work here, and we will not come down until it's finished. So get used to it. And when you're struggling to make the decision, involve your heart. This is the next step, is ask your heart to tell you which one is the better choice. We talk about this always, to listen to the heart, pose a question, and which answer feels better. Which one says yes? So water or soda? Which one feels better? Yeah. And who knows, maybe today it's soda. That's okay. But just listen. At least give your higher self a chance to speak up. Read the news for the 4th time today, or pick up this spiritual book and read. Watch TV for 3 more hours, or get up and take a walk. It's kind of obvious, but you never know. Might need a little boost from your heart. Keep the argument going, or offer to listen and tell me more. Your heart will tell you. It will feel better. Whichever question you're throwing out, listen to what feels better. That's part of the training process. And remember that you're deciding for good and doing for good. So it's not just making the decision, it's actually taking action. That's the whole point of our power of will, is to be the bridge between the goal that you're setting and the actual accomplishment. The thoughts that you're thinking and the manifestation of those thoughts. So be willing to take at least one action as you're starting to tap into what your highest vision is and setting that goal. It's the 5th principle that we talk about in unity. It's nice to know all these spiritual principles, but now it's also time to put them into work, to apply them to your life. And then the last step here is just keep affirming, locking in with your words what this willingness is all about. Some of mine that I wrote down were, I'm willing to be good to my health and walk 4 days a week. I am willing. Not I will, because that's sometime in the future. I am willing. I'm willing to deepen my connection with Spirit and meditate every day. I'm willing to look for the good and have a sense of humor. I'm willing to accept others and be the peace that the world needs. I'm willing to listen more and talk less. I am willing. Those are your new favorite words. I am willing. When you feel the ego getting up with its resistance about taking the easy way out, I am willing. That will be a good start for you using your power of will. Recognizing that it's this power that leads to everything good in life. Here from, Jesus was trying to help people say, it's not going to be an easy route. From Matthew 7, he said, enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction. And there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life. And there are few who find it. This is your secret weapon. It is your absolute ticket to winning the lottery, is using your power of will for good. It's this power that brings you satisfaction, it brings you success, it brings you loving relationships, it brings you a healthy body, it brings you a fulfilling purpose in life, if you will use your power of will to get there. You've all got it. Martha Smock promised us something. She said, in giving way to God and being willing to relinquish the personal will, we find ourselves infilled, refreshed, renewed, and strengthened. We find that we've not given up our will, rather, we have reinforced it with God. A lot of times we think when we use our power of will that we have to know how to make this thing happen. But if you align your will with the higher will for good and listen to what that might be, that power is going to come in behind you and lay the groundwork for you. And it's going to be a lot easier than you think. It's when we resist through the ego that it gets in our way. So let's take some time in the quiet here and see if we can't connect with that part of ourself that is the highest vision. Maybe you could go back now to that experience you're having in life right now that feels stuck or overwhelming, confusing, boring. Something that's got you held back from your good. Take a moment to notice the feelings surrounding this experience you're having. Is it sad? Is it frustrating? Does it make you angry? You feel depressed? Just notice the feeling that comes along with where you're at in this process. And somewhere behind that feeling, there is a belief. It's an error belief, but it's strong enough to keep you stuck. So let's figure out what that is. What's the belief that is making you angry? Or creating depression? I'm angry because I believe. I'm hopeless because I believe. And this is the moment to remember there's only one power working in my life. This power of God is always present. It's always good. It's always for me. Notice how that feels. There's only one power working for me. What a relief. The heart and mind of God sees your situation from a different point of view. Open your heart now to what that new point of view might be. Is God afraid of some outer power or person? Allow yourself to see in your mind's eye what the mind of God thinks about this situation. Does Spirit believe that there's a shortage and that there's not enough for you? know. Divine Mind knows there is infinite good and enough for everyone. Does Spirit see you as incapable, unintelligent, uneducated, weak? No. You and God are one. The wisdom of God is my wisdom. The creativity of God is my creativity. The realm of infinite ideas are present within me. I am able. I am willing. I open my heart to the highest vision that Spirit has for me in this situation. Just take a moment to let Spirit show you what that looks like. The highest vision for you in this situation. We don't need all the details. We just need the feeling. A knowing that God's good is my good and all things are possible. I am willing to be obedient to the best thought I know. I am willing to align my thoughts with divine thoughts. I am willing to look for the good, and I'm willing to work for the good. I use my power of will from the highest point of view and create life and liberty and happiness. And from this place, I feel grateful. So glad to know that all that I need to fulfill my purpose for being is here, now, as me. Thank you, God. This is the truth of my being, and I am willing to let it be.